webinar in our Policy Fellowship series. And we have two phenomenal, extraordinarily phenomenal speakers for you today. I am so excited. And we're going to be talking about key frameworks in advocacy, in gender justice, and trans liberation. Okay, now here go some housekeeping rules. This meeting is being recorded. You can enable closed captioning. Please share your questions in the chat. Now you can also raise your hand and we'll take questions at the end of this webinar after the speakers. We are in meeting mode on Zoom, so you can mute and unmute yourself using *6 or the mute button on your phone. And these are our presenters for today's webinar. Toy Washington, the Executive Director of Trans Women of Color Healing Project, and AJ Scruggs, CEO and founder of Visible Truth 365. And I will let our presenters actually introduce themselves and tell us more about them at their leisure. So.
Sis, you would like to go first?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm Toy Washington Reynolds, pronouns she, her, founder and executive director of the Trans Women of Color Healing Project. I always start my introduction off with giving grace and asking for permission from my elders to be trusted and respected in the space, giving honor and privilege to Meta and Myra and Kelly for creating such an amazing space. Trusting and appreciating for allowing me to be in a space. I'm grateful to be here and being able to share my wisdom and hopefully the knowledge and experience that I'm able to share with you all can help you transform your past and your journey. And I give you some tools that you can add to your toolkits to add to your journey of healing and liberation.
Hello, folks. My name is AJ Scruggs. As mentioned earlier, my pronouns are he, they, and king. Please use them all or just use my name. I am the founder and executive director of Visible Truth 365. I am also the current Take Civic Engagement Fellow for the state of Pennsylvania. We work through legislation and policy for trans folks in schools with a focus on trans kids and LGBTQ youth here in the state of Pennsylvania. I love what I do. I work at the intersection of HIV and policy. So I'm just excited to share my skill set. I am very, very grateful to PWN for reaching out, for considering me and my work to share with you all. So I am ready to do the sharing, and I look forward to engaging with you all.
All right. Thank y'all so much for your introductions. And like I said, y'all are amazing in what you do. When I read your bios, there was so much that you do. You know, I was just in awe. But anyway, back to the present our webinar for today. The Positive Women's Network is the only national membership body created for and by cisgender and transgender women, gender diverse people, and transgender people living with HIV. Since 2008, our members have created a unified voice and built collective power for women, gender diverse, and trans people living with HIV. We believe that racial and gender justice cannot be divested from the HIV response and ground our work in collective liberation. PWN is creating a world where all women, gender diverse, and trans people living with HIV can live long, healthy, and dignified lives, free from stigma, discrimination, and criminalization. Now, the Policy Fellowship web series is a year-long program designed to support cis and trans women transgender and gender diverse people living with HIV to build skills and experience in policy and advocacy. We are acutely aware that we are launching in the midst of escalating fascism and state terror in the US and abroad. We have structured this year to give participants more tools to respond to new and emerging threats with trusted and emerging strategies. Now, by the time we are finished, today's participants will learn about how gendered justice and trans liberation intersect with the HIV movement, and also learn strategies for applying a gender justice framework to policy advocacy. And this is how the flow of things will go, our agenda. We've had welcomes and introductions. We'll hear from AJ and then from Toy. We'll have questions for the speakers. And then we will always have our call to actions and we will close out. Okay. Now, here is a question for our speakers. Um, what does gender justice and trans liberation mean to you? And it doesn't matter who starts.
Gender justice, for me, it's the root of the work that I do at the Healing Project. It's why the Healing Project was created. The Healing Project was created with the belief that we are bigger than gender. Gender is a box. It's a social construct that our very existence, our birth, our existence was meant to create. Our gifts are bigger than the box that we were born in. Our existence was meant to dismantle and create and dismantle those boxes. I believe that when we were born, we were created and born with such unique gifts that the Creator allowed us to be able to exist and navigate and move and be born in two spaces and allow us to show up and be who we needed to be in those spaces, and not allowing us to be able to be this, and not allowing others to decide who we wanted to be, who not allowing others to now perpetuate onto us who they thought we should be. And with that gift so amazing, we're able to show up and be who it is we needed to be for each other and for ourselves. And it is because of that we are disruptors. We are meant to be disruptors. Our very existence is what's terrifying these systems. Our very existence is what's causing us to be able to be the cause of political being political pawns, being a part of witch hunts. We have allowed now we are so powerful that now scientists and doctors understand that thing that makes us that we wake up every day, and they say if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, we believe something that nobody else saw, and we believe it so much that it manifests and it shows up in our very being, and we move with that, and because we move with that, the world believes and it bends because we know who we are. And we don't need no one else to affirm or validate that. And that belief that we have and that gift that we have is not able to be contained by a box called gender. All we need is each other. All we need is each other. We need a space, and we need a space where we can just be who we are. We don't need permission. No, we didn't need approval. All we need is each other. We've been in existence before these systems. We've dismantled these systems. Historically, we have been here. We've been here through Egyptian times. We've been here before all of those systems were created. We created those systems. We were a part of the first civilization. History proves that. It's no coincidence they're trying to erase history. You can't erase the people that created the history. We created culture. We'll have more conversations about that later on, but it's deeper than what we even know. You can never enslave a person that knows their name.
Sure.
And because we know who we are, we would never go back. And so that's why it's important that we have these spaces and we have these conversations. And for me, gender justice is calling us back to the center. It's having these spaces and having these conversations and giving each other the reminder and affirming each other as we navigate daily to let us know and to affirm each other that even if you try to take this thing called gender, that would not dilute our gifts. That would not dilute our contributions to society. That would not dilute the roles that we have played throughout history. And so when we talk about gender justice and liberation, that's who we are. We create culture. There will be no culture without us, without our contributions to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Toy. Now, AJ, what does gender justice and trans liberation mean to you?
I'm gonna get into this a little bit actually in my presentation, but as a personal, gender justice means more than women's rights. Um, oftentimes, oftentimes people hear gender justice and only think about cisgender women specifically. Gender justice is inclusive of trans men. Gender justice is inclusive of trans women and gender nonconforming individuals. So gender justice is inclusive of all of that on our way to trans liberation, which is the pathway to all of our all of our liberation. You know, so the most marginalized of us is free. None of us are. So those two things means that they have to work together, just like our intersectionality, our personal identities work together. Like you don't have a singular experience. So those are the two things that kind of stand out to me when I hear those two things together.
All right, thank you so much for that, AJ. Okay, moving right along. We'll just let you continue, AJ. Intersections with the HIV movement and apology strategies.
Thank you so much, Myra. So, folks, again, my name is AJ Scruggs, pronouns he, they, and king. Use them all or just use my name. Founder and executive director of Visible Truth 365. And we're going to talk about gender justice and trans liberation today. And also give you some key tools to make sure that you are incorporating that framework with all of your work, all of your advocacy work, including HIV and policy work. Next slide. So just some objectives from our space. We're going to learn how gender justice and trans liberation intersect with HIV advocacy. We're going to explore the gender justice framework for policy change, and then apply the strategies to make policy more inclusive. Okay, next slide. Okay, as an icebreaker, I want to see this chat get active a little bit. So think about a space that you may be in that involves policies, decision making, rules, things of that nature. Um, who's missing from those tables quite often? In spaces, especially like HIV spaces, who's usually missing from those conversations? Who's not represented at that table? I see trans men in the comments, trans people, people who use drugs, people who do sex work. Absolutely, these are great. Black trans women, people who are actually living with HIV. Pregnancy is not represented. Absolutely. Poor people. These are all great answers. Rural areas, incarcerated folks, Latinx people. These are great. Handicapped folks, differently able people, young people living with HIV. work with people who can't take time to give testimony. All of these are great answers, and I want to thank y'all for participating. There'll be more opportunities to either come off of mute and participate a little bit more as we go along. So one of the things that I hear oftentimes when I hear who's missing from the room, I look at the word intersection, and what y'all just displayed lets me know that y'all understand fully the people that need to be in the room. So we're going to talk about what gender justice actually is. So gender justice is more than equality. It's about systematic change. So if we are not attacking the systems, okay, the systems are the key point that we need to attack. These systems are usually governed by policies. Policies govern the people. So in order to change that, we have to start from the top and work our way back down. Gender justice also addresses racism, classism, transphobia, ableism alongside sexism. These things actually impact people at different junctures and impact them differently, depending on based upon your your intersectional identities, and it's also rooted in intersectionality. So myself as a Black trans man living with HIV is going to have a little bit of a different experience from a Black cis woman living with HIV, but there's also alignment in that. We'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. Next slide, please. Okay. So we're going to talk about, give you an example, a real world example of the gender justice gap. So the scenario is like HIV services get fully funded, but gender affirming care is excluded. I want to have somebody come off of mute, maybe one person, and how would this impact real people?
If I have to choose between my gender affirming care, that my insurance will only either cover that or my HIV meds, I might lean more towards my gender affirming care because that's what's most important to me at the time and not HIV meds.
Absolutely, it can make you choose one or the other. Can I have another answer?
I would say there's less equity in serving all people who are living with HIV, regardless of their gender or their sexual orientation or their age. There's the actual absence of equity.
Exactly. I love that. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who gets left out of this conversation? Because I'm going to go back a little bit in a minute. Who gets left out of this conversation? Somebody can say the obvious answer.
The patient, the client,
The patient,
person.
the people who need both. I see in the comments. We can be a little bit more specific.
Trans and gender non-conforming people.
Ooh, I recognize that voice. Thank you, Nisha.
Hey,
Absolutely.
AJ.
Absolutely. I'm also thinking about cisgender women who need IVF. I'm thinking about cisgender women who may need assistance trying to conceive. I'm looking at, because cisgender people are actually the biggest consumers of gender affirming care. When people are going through different stages of life, like menopause, gender affirming care is applied there as an example. Okay. And we're going to, I think I'll give you another example in the next slide. Nope. Okay. So we're going to talk about the intersections moving forward. Sorry about that. So trans liberation and HIV movement intersections. See, this is where we start looking at the side effects of what can happen. So we start looking at discrimination in healthcare and limits HIV prevention and treatment. If I can't be myself, the less likely I am going to be able to take care of myself, which means I can't take my one a days because I'm actually dealing with anxiety or other pressures or societal pressures where I'm not able to take care of myself on the healthcare side. Okay. HIV criminalization laws disproportionately harm Black and trans folks. Black women are one of the highest demographic, if not the highest demographic of Black folks to experience HIV criminalization. And then funding silos block holistic care. Do we have any questions about that so far? Okay. We can move to the next slide. Okay, this is the real life scenario. This is the scenario for y'all. So a bill funds HIV prevention programs, but does not include trans-specific outreach. So we have to figure out what's missing and how do you fix it. I'm gonna give y'all 2 minutes to think this over, and then I'm gonna call on like 2 or 3 people to actually give those answers starting now. So at 6:26, we can actually mull over those and get those active. Also, by listening to my voice, this is muscle building, what we're doing. Remembering that we have to think about what's missing, how do we fix it? Got about 30 seconds. If you would like to chime in, use the raise your hand feature in the Zoom chat so we can get our 3. Please. We are ready for our first answer. All right, we got one answer in the chat. So I would say competent care. I would hire trans people to work with trans people so trans people can be treated like human beings instead of poorly, because cisgender people can be so uncomfortable working with us despite being paid to do so. I agree. Having community that is front facing, dealing with community, oftentimes breaks down that barrier to care as well. If I see somebody that looks like me, I feel a little bit more safe being in that space. Thank you so much for that. Is that Zena? I believe. Valerie, you're up next. What's missing and how do we fix it? Valerie, are you there? Valerie. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Is there any other answers that anybody else that wanted to answer as well? Jasmine Carroll. Yes.
Hi, AJ. this is an opportunity just to say hi because I remember when we met during HINAC and I was like really excited to be a part of this. But I was just gonna say, so trans people are missing from the table as we've discussed, but another way to fix it, in addition to what people have been saying in the comments, is maybe like a community advocacy board that includes trans people, to get their perspective on what would be effective for outreach.
Love that, including people in the decision-making process. And Jasmine, it's great to see you again. And oh my goodness, we do have another answer right here. Let me see. I would find advocates and allies of trans community to speak and share the importance of the appropriate language and provisions being added. I would also have a proposal of what should be added. I love that. Trans-specific outreach, the bill, okay. Oh, wow, okay. How to fix it. Listen, come on with the breakdown. I love this. I love people that like can articulate their feelings and do the thing. Let me see, Wanda.
Hi, AJ. It's very nice to meet you. If we had a team, particularly involved with policy making in DC, like we used to have the ONAP, the Office of, I can't remember the acronyms. I'm sorry, brain fart. But if we had that group, and it was, several people, like 6, 8, 9 people. And if we particularly had persons that are living the trans life, that is who they are. We have women that were living with HIV that were trying to have babies. Or maybe a mother living with HIV that has a child that is of trans experience. That would be powerful because they would be right there if we were in a better environment with our legislators in DC.
I think that is a great idea. And also to give you a gentle pushback, remember, women aren't the only people that can carry babies. So trans men specifically would be with the people that can, with the birthing persons in that scenario. So making sure that all people with the capacity for pregnancy are also represented.
Thank you for that just went by my mind. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much for giving me all of y'all feedback. I will be definitely going back to those bullet points to read them for myself because listen, you did not come to play this on this evening. And we're going to move to the next slide so I can give y'all some of that gender justice framework. So one of the things that a lot of you did was identify who was the most impacted. Because the trans community was on the front of a lot of your answers. So you're doing the gender justice framework already. So the next thing is, does it address the structural barriers that people living with HIV are going to face? Does it address racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, all of those things? Next, are people in the decision-making process? We just talked about that. Very casually, making sure everybody's at that table and a part of the decision-making process. And interconnect issues. One of the things that I did in Wanda's response was also remind her that women aren't the only people that can have babies. Anybody with the capacity for pregnancy that may have been assigned female at birth possibly should be at that table. And also, you want to make sure that you are enforcing and monitoring the change. Be on your legislators, be on your policy changers, your decision makers' heads, because that's what they get paid to do. You're allowed to be on their nerves. You pay them. make sure you're monitoring the changes that are constantly happening in your area, stay up to date as much as possible, and also making sure that your folks around you also know those changes. Okay, next. Now I have a question for you. Well, actually, I have two. Which of the 5 steps do you feel the most confident in applying? I can have one person come off of mute real quick. Can we go back to the framework so people can actually see them again? Thank you. Identifying the most impacted, addressing structural barriers, making sure people are in the decision making, and connecting issues, and enforcing and monitoring change. Thank you, Kelly, for putting it in chat. Just Mola.
Yeah, I just want to
I'd like to enforce. Oh, go ahead, Wanda.
Just
Okay, I'd like to be the one enforcing the change. Making sure that everything is covered, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and also trying to recruit our trans community to be sitting at the table. I think you're the one that had on those badass sneakers at High Neck that I was trying to get. So anyway, it's good to see you. Thanks for your service. Those are two things I think I would be good at doing.
no problem. Good to see you again. Kanisha, and do we have anybody else behind enough?
so what for me is I'm the kind of person who harvest who hoops and hollers and tells and educates people about intersectionality and how everything is and how everything that everybody go through intersects in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? So my thing is I like to educate people on how intersectionality works because sometimes people can be ignorant on how certain issues and certain things they act like it does not affect them, but it does at the end of the day. And people don't know about that. Or either people do know about that or they act ignorant towards it. So my thing about that is sitting down and having some level of a focus group or an educational piece to let people know that this is happening and it's not just going to affect people like me as a trans person, it's going to affect you too in some shape, form, or fashion. And it may not happen to you directly, but somewhere down the line, it will happen. And once it happens to you, it's going to be too late. You ain't going to be able to change that fact. And another
So
thing,
it sounds like you're down to make to connect the issues with a little bit of
yeah,
enforcement and monitoring
yes,
change there too. So it sounds like you couldn't pick one, but I feel like picking up more than one of these as your responsibility, I think also makes you a little bit stronger because you then can build out your skills um, in various different ways. So I appreciate y'all again. We're gonna go to the next slide. One more. Oh, which is the hardest? So drop which would you consider to be the hardest for you to want to apply to your personal advocacy? And we're getting to the last. I do have a call to action for folks. I want to make sure that you are trying to apply your gender justice framework to your policy work, your HIV work, wherever that intersects. Um, I want y'all to think about what's one thing that you will do in the next 30 days to bring gender justice into your advocacy.
Awesome.
Okay, we got a couple more slides because I got to do some shameless plugs. uh, because I do a lot of this work. So a lot of the information that I was able to pull comes from the Center of HIV Law and Policy. If you are looking for more information about HIV criminalization in your particular state, they have a group of maps. Also, the movement advancement map also has that information as well. Visible T 365, of course, is my organization. You can follow us on social media. The PAC 40, which is the PA Coalition for Trans Youth, is the offshoot of Take. The coalition that we work with in Pennsylvania to move legislation, and TLC is another great place to get some information and also team up with a group like Positively Trans to find trans advocates living with HIV to do this work. Next slide. Okay, and the next time, if you want to see me again, you can catch me and the lovely executive director of PWN, Margita Miller, at USCHA for More Than One Truth, where we will have an intersectional conversation between trans men, trans women, and cisgender women to see how we can start utilizing the gender framework and talk about how our struggles and energies intersect in this work. And lastly, myself and the Zero Project, which was a generous grant that we got, we're putting on the Visible Truths Symposium. We are inviting all folks that identify as women and folks who are AFAB or assigned female at birth to come together for part two of a conversation, intersectional conversation, but also a day of learning and community. Also, the
Wow.
last and final thing on that Saturday, we will have the very first ever HIV is Not a Crime ball. We're bringing ballroom and HIV criminalization education together so that folks can learn and play all at the same time. So, thank you all for having me, and I appreciate y'all.
Wow. Thank you so much, AJ. Phenomenal. And just so much information. Make sure you put stuff in the chat or, leave us all of the information. And let me apologize for my situation, but life happens. And this could be a gender justice issue because sometimes, hey, we women, we wear a lot of hats and we got to do what we got to do. And so, when duty calls, I answer. Okay. So next up, Miss Toy Washington, the director of Trans Women of Color Healing Justice Project. And it was very intentional for you to be the second speaker, Toy, because of your healing justice piece. Because we understand that sometimes as we go through these presentations, it can be sometimes overwhelming. It might be a little overwhelming. And we have to take the time to breathe. So if anybody feels anything, please just step back for a moment, because we, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Now, Toy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Myra, for that amazing period of grace. And thank you for introducing my future. You said healing justice. That was affirmation, speaking into the future. I love that. Um, so before we go any further, I want us to just take a moment to just acknowledge where we are in this moment and give ourselves space to acknowledge everything that we feel. Um, as we gather here today, I want us to acknowledge the grief that we carry. This is a space that's safe, it's sacred. I don't want us to leave a part of us behind. A lot of times people ask us to come into spaces, but how many of us feel that we're not totally welcome, that we have to leave a part of us behind? And if we have to leave a part of us behind in a space, that means that we're not fully asked to show up. And if we're not fully asked to show up, that means that we're not going to get exactly what we need out of the space. So I'm asking that we bring all of us into this space, all of the broken pieces, the abandonment that we feel, the hurt that we feel in this moment, the uncertainty that we feel because of this social political climate, the grief that we're feeling. Some of us have dealing with grief of losing loved ones. Some of us just don't feel safe in this moment. And it's important that we acknowledge that. Losing loved ones. Some of us are losing resources. As I'm going through the chat, I'm realizing that lack of resources has been real prevalent. We're losing access to HRT, which is vital to us as trans and gender diverse individuals. Organizations are closing. Funding is starting to be scarce because for some reason this system and this political this administration believes that we're not human beings, that we're relying on their services, that we are just science projects, and that if they cut off the medical services, that we won't exist. We're beyond that. And it's important in this season that we take back our narratives. And it starts with conversations like today. It starts with healing justice. So if you can, could you go to the next slide? So gender justice, to the next, go up one more for me, please.
Would you like me to show the worksheet? Is that going to be
Yes,
the easiest?
please.
Okay,
Please.
give me 1 second. I can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Awesomeness. Thank you. So gender justice is more than gender equality. It's about transforming systems so that people of all genders, especially those historically marginalized, can live free from violence, stigma, and systemic oppression. It centers the lived experiences of those at the sharpest intersections, Black trans women, femmes, and gender diverse folks. What is gender justice? At its core, gender justice is the full inclusion and recognition of all gender identities, not just within law or policy, but in culture, care, and community. The dismantling of systems that perpetrate harm, including misogyny, transphobia, anti-Blackness, poverty, and cultural control, ensuring bodily autonomy, freedom from violence, and access to healthcare, education, housing, and leadership for all genders, especially those whose voices have been silenced. Acknowledging that healing and liberation are essential to justice and must be community led, trauma informed, and culturally rooted. At the Trans Women of Color Healing Project, gender justice is sacred, ancestral, and liberatory. We define gender justice as the unapologetic affirmation and protection of all gender diverse lives, especially Black trans women, through culturally rooted healing, collective power, and community led systems of care. We believe gender justice starts with healing because trauma is systemic and our survival is resistance. We believe that every day we show up is an act of resistance. Our existence is resistance. Centering Black trans women, Black and brown trans women and femmes, not just as afterthoughts, but as architects of change. We built these systems. We built this culture. We built this world that we live in. And if we did it before, we can do it again. We just have to be reminded of our brilliance. I tell folks all the time, When was the last time you looked at your resume? When was the last time you updated your resume to realize the brilliance that you have created? When was the last time you sat back and reflected on the things that you have done? When have we given ourselves time to sit back and just celebrate ourselves? It's important that we create ecosystems of safety where survivors of gender-based violence can not only survive but thrive. Gender justice requires retroactive action for systems, funders, and institutions to correct historic neglect and erasure. We have to hold folks accountable. Just because you're funding us, that doesn't mean you dictate to us how we move. We know what works for us. We know what our people need. We have had to turn, we have given back so many funding opportunities. We're not going to submit to your demands for your money. We don't measure success by numbers. We measure success by impact. We're not going to chase funding dollars. You want us to chase 100 people, that's not a measure of success for us. If we're able to impact the lives of 20 or 25 Black or brown trans women, that's what success looks like for us. And we have to be clear on this because we're the ones that's doing the work in community. So we have to take our power back. Why must we dismantle systems of gender-based oppression? Gender as a system was never created to reflect our fullness. It was designed to regulate, categorize, and control. It has weaponized through colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and religious dogma to strip people, especially Black, trans, gender diverse, and non-binary folk, of their autonomy, humanity, and divine essence. We dismantle gender oppression because it's the foundation of all of the other systems of control, from prisons to poverty, from violence to invisibility. It imposes binary limits on our infinite identities, cutting us off from ancestral knowledge, spiritual gifts, and full expression. Because of their intentionality at erasing gender, because they're wanting to put us in a box, they're going through a quest of erasing history. If you ever take time to look at history, if you look at those statues in Egypt, those goddesses and goddesses were gender variant. You see female top and you see and you see tops at the you see female tops and you see bottoms that identify with male parts. But yet they were worshipped. Every culture we are celebrated. I have my Polynesian sisters in Hawaii. They're celebrated. There are 4 stones that's in Hawaii today. The mahi. Those 4 stones are celebrated. They're healers. To this day, if we go to Hawaii right now, those stones are there. When those folks come to celebrate, because those healers have came down from the mountains and they were there for a ceremony. And their ceremony, when they came down, they were celebrated. And on the day of that celebration, they descended into those stones. And to this day, folks come there and they rub those stones because those stones carry the healing powers of those trans and gender diverse leaders. Our history and legacy can be traced. And that's why they're afraid of us. We're healers. We're not delusional. We're not confused. Nor do we need their medicine and their technology to exist. Could you go up, please? It erases the existence and the contributions of the two-spirited, trans, intersex, and non-binary people who have always existed across cultures and timelines. I wish I had more time. I would do a more in-depth educational guide that was more engaged with pictures. Hopefully I'll get a chance to do that in the future. but it's throughout history. The research is there. Sometimes we have to just do this work for ourselves. It's all in the hieroglyphics. It's all in the tombs. We've been here. To dismantle gender oppression is to create conditions for our souls to breathe and for future generations to live beyond survival. Our role as trans and gender diverse people were not to just survive, we are the blueprint disruptors. As trans and gender diverse people, we embody the very freedom systems try to erase. Our existence is a cosmic and political act of resistance. Our role is to shatter the boxes that were never built for us, refuse conformity to systems that define us only through suffering or spectacle, model new ways of being, loving, healing, and leading, and co-creating, guide others toward liberation because we have already learned how to live on the edge and still bloom. We don't just fight systems, we are midwives to the future. Could you go up, please? Absolutely, Deborah, I can share. How healing justice dismantle oppression. Healing justice is not just self-care, it's collective strategy and revolutionary. It gives us tools to survive oppression while we dismantle it and build something better in its place. Healing justice allows us to interrupt systems of trauma, internalize shame, and lateral harm, reclaim our bodies as sacred, our joy as protest, and our rest as rebellion. Create ecosystems of care that aren't dependent on volatile institutions. Hold space for grief, rage, transformation, and possibility all at once. Reconnect to ancestral knowledge, ritual, and spiritual practices that center wholeness, not pathology. At TWC Healing Project, healing justice means sound and healing therapies as reclamation, life coaching retreats, and holistic care that affirms trans joy, creating sacred space for trans people to be soft, angry, brilliant, and divine without apology. We dismantle not to just destroy, but to make room for something sacred. We're not here to fit into systems. We're here to remake the world, one breath at a time, one circle, one healed body at a time. I want us to understand that our breath is one of the most powerful tools and the most powerful instrument that we'll ever have. Energy doesn't die, it transfers. The same breath that Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman had, and the same breath that Marsha P. and Sylvia had, it's the same breath that we have in us. So we don't have to look for a leader. The leader is already in us. Every time we take a breath, we're inhaling the breath of those ancestors, of those transcestors, of those great leaders. We just have to take a breath, hit that reset button, and make the move. We have everything inside of us that it takes. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of us coming together in these moments because they know there's something there's something magical happens when we come together. That's why they're trying to police our movements. That's why they're trying to interrupt and disrupt our spaces. That's why they're trying to take education out of schools. Because the knowledge in our history and our future is hidden in the books. But if they erase the books, who would then hold the knowledge? It's our job. We can't wait for the system. The system will never fund our liberation from it. Icebreaker. This is called Unbox Me. I don't know how much longer I have, so someone help keep me abreast of time before I get too carried away. This particular icebreaker is reclaim truth beyond gender boxes and societal expressions. Name one box or label you have been forced into and one truth about yourself that refuses to stay in that box. They say I had to be a man, but I'm spirit clothed in brilliance. My very existence defied everything the world said I would never be. Name one box that you were forced to be in, but every day you have defied that. You can put it in the chat or you can popcorn it. I want this to be the interactive portion. Give us one box that you have been forced into, but you refuse to stay there. We know gender norms and gender roles and gender expectations have conformed our existence and put a limitation on us. But today we're going to dismantle boxes. Give us one box that you have been forced into and you have dismantled. And for me,
Um,
that box is I was born as male and I took my power back. That's not who I am. That's what society says.
Okay, I have an answer to that. The answer to
Mhm.
that is a little deeper than what we probably on the conference call is. But the
No,
box
it's no
that
such thing.
okay, but the box that I was put that I am currently and constantly and still being put in is the box of that we all are sex workers. I'm sorry. All trans women are not sex workers. We are educated, black, white, Latina, educated, master degrees, and the works. Myself, I hold 3 degrees. But because people see me, the first thing they think is that it's sex. I'm a sex worker, or I have to do this because I have a lovely apartment. No, I work hard for what I have. And it's not easy, but that's the box most trans women and even trans men are put in here in the rural South, which I'm from Georgia. So, we got it
Yeah.
all ways.
And so here's the thing, and I tell folks all the time, we have to take back our power. There's a difference between who you are and what you do. When you learn the difference between who you are and what you do, you'll never be the same. There is healing with understanding that who you are and what you do are different. Who you are is your purpose. I'm a healer. I'm love. I'm light. I'm joy. I'm liberation. I'm the creator's true representation of love. What I do with that, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an executive director, I'm a minister. That's what I do. I'm a former sex worker. I'm formerly incarcerated. That's what I've done. That's not who I am. What you do is going to always change, right? And so what we cannot do is we cannot allow a system to hold and let us and make us believe what we do is who we are.
Precisely. And if I did stay in that box, I wouldn't be the person who I am today.
And
So
if we was to stay in that box, we would never heal.
precisely, healing is one of the big factors. Um,
Absolutely.
And let's also address the issue that most people won't talk about and we won't talk about. All those who've been sexually abused, have been raped, have been, tossed out their homes, who have homelessness. I mean, if we could go really depth and detail with all the drama and, psychological behind everything that's going on. But just to answer that question for you, everybody gonna always be put in a box because we human. First of all, we human beings before we're anything else. For race, gender, we are humans. Not unless you were alien, I do not know. I don't
No,
want to
and
know.
some believe that we're spirits living a human experience.
Precisely. That's when you transcend the mind and the body.
You better say it, sis.
um, but without going there in too much detail and taking up too much time, you know, I the box was put on us, on every human
Mm.
back when we started it in BC. Okay. But what people fail to realize, all the stuff that's being translated was always translated by a man. Not one woman translated anything that's in the Bible. I'm just saying, I know it's going to touch some people, and I know religious is not something that we pay, but everything is driven by religion and God we trust on the dollar bill. Religious.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying now? You see where I'm coming with
Yeah.
this?
I do. I do. I do. And that's why thank you for introducing that into the space.
Yes.
You have introduced two intersections in which my work is I have really shifted my work into one of the area, well, some of the things that we do with the Healing Project. We're one
Mm-hmm.
of the only Black trans-led organizations that's funded to do work around sexual assault, to do work for
Good.
Black trans women as victors and experiencers of sexual assault. And I also, in June, I became a ordained minister. So I think it's very important that we take and shift those narratives that we've always been here and that we are part of the Creator's purpose. I'm not an abomination. You're not an abomination. We are part of the
Precisely.
Creator's purpose. So that's why it's important that we occupy all of those spaces. Thank you
Precisely.
for introducing that.
No problem. Oh, by the way, I'm a Zana Bryant, by the way. Sorry.
Nice to meet you. I see that we have the box of age. Absolutely. Ageism is a big thing. And if we don't start to address that right now, we're going to be a part of that system that they're going to be using to push us out. I believe that silence is deadly. And if we don't use our voices to advocate for those with those that are less fortunate or those that don't have a voice as big as ours, we're going to become victim to the same system. I believe that if we don't stand in solidarity with the immigrants, we're going to become that. Just like when he first started his whole campaign and he joked around the immigrants and he talked about the wall and we didn't stand in solidarity and support the immigrants. Then he went on and talked about the disabled folks and we didn't say anything. Then he went on into the bathrooms. We are so reactionary and sometimes we're so late to reaction until it's us. We have to do better. With other activity, let me see, we have some more notes. Other activity is tearing down the walls. What systems or beliefs have tried to box in your gender or limit your access to care? How have these systems shaped your HIV journey across access to healing or sense of safety? Oh, y'all want to stick into this first one. We can go there because I'm enjoying what I'm reading. The Ethiopians have a completely different Bible and calendar than we do, and many parts of the Bible were taken out. Y'all really trying to get me to go there, huh? See, we don't have time, but I want to go there. You're correct. You are absolutely correct. The whole belief around, I know this is not religion, but we're here and we're talking about healing justice, and we cannot talk about healing without introducing those components that are vital to healing. And religion is the tool they have used they have weaponized against us. The whole concept around Adam and Eve is not even introduced in the way that it is in the Ethiopian Bible. So you're correct, Zena. You're so correct. Thank you for introducing that.
Yes, indeed. Awesome. Awesome.
Okay, we say sending me to a women's clinic for GYN care when I'm not read as anything other than a man. My God, that's a system. That's a system that's projecting. That's a system that's projecting. Now, how do we take our power back in that? How do we take our power back in a system that's projecting, that's putting us into a box that they want us to be in, that's comfortable for them? That's why it's important that we create spaces. We create safe spaces. And now they're trying to take those safe spaces. And now it's not the time for us to shrink. Now is the time for us to do more, to create more spaces like this. Now is not the time for us to shift language. Now is the time for us as community members to know exactly what space we're going into. I don't want to have to try to look for care or look for a safe space, and I have to go into the fine print to try to figure out if this is the space for me. And this is the time where representation does matter. Organizations now, especially large CBOs, they're now changing their language because they say that this is the government that's saying, no, it's an executive order, sweetie. Executive order is not the law of the land. You don't have to comply with that. It's a choice that you make. It's not a bill. It's a suggestion. And we have to hold folks that are accountable. They are put in place to provide a service for us. Our voice still matters. And why it matters, we have to hold folks accountable. That's what healing justice look like. Centering the voices of the people that you put in place to provide services for. Let's go into reimagine and liberation. I want to go into this. You're right, they're not. Executive orders are not laws. We realized that under the last administration, when we had a progressive president that was one of the most progressive presidents when it came to the LGBTQ plus community. And I know because I was a part of the president's plan to end gender-based violence. And the last meeting that we had at the White House, and it was a group of leaders from all over the United States when we got together. Not only was the plan created, there was 1.6 billion dollars in funding and resources under the plan to end gender-based violence. There was hate crime protections. There was resources for trans and gender diverse folks. That was the first time ever in history that we ever had those kind of protections. There was also the VAWA Act, the Violence Against Women Act, that was administered under President Biden. That was the first time in history that we were as protected as we were. And there were certain states that did not want to honor that. That's why no executive orders don't have any power. It's up to the state to choose if they want to honor that. Making sure that medical providers are properly trained to provide the services they are Absolutely, absolutely. How many times have we had to take off the t-shirt of being a patient and go into provider mode? We have to teach people how to be there for us. It gets tired. It's a daunting task, but it's the reality for us as trans and gender diverse people. I don't want to have to be a teacher right now. I'm in pain, but I know I have to advocate for myself. If I don't tell this doctor how to care for me properly, I'm not going to get the care that I need. And even more so now in this social political climate. Now let's take a step. We talked about those things and brought up some moments that can be toxic and that can be harmful and some moments that are triggering. But let's think about liberation because we will get to that place called liberation. And when we get back to that space and when we get back to that place, I want us to start the work now. I want us to start the liberation and reimagining that space because we're not going to make this mistake again. We're going to make sure that we use our voices and we're not going to allow people that don't represent us just because they say they are. We're going to be very protective of our spaces. We have allowed people that say they are a part of us to come and dismantle our spaces from within. And we're not going to make that mistake again. So what would your life feel like without that wall? What does the liberated, affirming future look or feel like? If you can create your perfect community, what would that look like? What would that feel like? Who would be a part of that community?
Awesome. That is so.
What would be needed to create that community? We've had funding before, but we know how funding was misused. We don't want to go back that way. Vice President Kamala Harris said we're not going back. But as we're reimagining what liberation is going to look like in the future, because we are going to go back to that place. And this time it's our responsibility to make it better than ever. Now is the time where we envision what that looks like. What does a liberated, affirming future look or feel like? Could you go up for me? Here are the action steps. Healing as rebellion. These are the personal action steps. I want you to figure out, how will I protect my peace and identity this week? Even if it's just limiting your intake on the news. It's important to know what's going on, but it's also important to engage in self-care. As opposed to 5 days of the news, give yourself 3 days of it. Or know your capacity. We know they're going to use this situation in Minnesota to make us all feel powerless. That's what the systems are intended to do. How are you going to take your power back? How are you going to protect your peace and your identity this week? What healing or self-care ritual will you reclaim? And as a collective action, what liberatory project can you co-create this month within this group? Y'all see each other more than I see you all. So what kind of commitment can you make to each other to hold each other accountable? You can choose one of the collective actions below. You can choose Trans Joy and Wellness Resource List, whether it's a playlist for music that's going to make you up, because music is mood altering. I started the session off because I love music. It grounds and it centers. And music is also the soundtrack of our lives. I can forget about something until a song comes on. Oh, that's where I was at. Oh, that's who I was with. Whether it's a good moment or a good emotion or bad, music helps us in that. It aids us in that. So whether it's a resource list, food, or music, create a trans joy wellness resource list, or a virtual healing circle, or a support group, or a storytelling campaign where you all are just sharing your stories and using your stories to heal others. Others need to hear your voices. So many folks are suffering in silence because they feel alone. And if you all was to come together and put your stories together and just create a campaign, imagine how many other folks can you heal, free, and liberate. Because we all suffer in silence. And the enemy has done the injustice, has played a trick on us by making us feel as though we're alone. We're not alone. Something amazing happens when we come together in spaces like this, when we share our stories. Our job is to do more of that. Absolutely. Weave threads of stigma into tapestries of strength. And as I come to a close, I want us to understand that my healing dismantles. I'm sacred because, and I want you to finish the sentence. My healing dismantles systems. I feel my healing dismantles systems. I'm sacred because I'm born that way. The group affirmation, we're not here to fit in. We're here to be free. We're not what they named us. We are what we reclaim. Our healing is holy. Our existence is evidence, and our joy is justice. I appreciate you all for creating and giving me space. And hopefully you all can use this toolkit to support you on your journeys.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. And that's what I'm talking about. Healing, the healing portion of your presentation. I've been looking forward to it all week because the work that we do, it really can be stressful. Life can be stressful within itself, especially when unexpected things happen. But we know that the work is always going to be here. Going back to your presentation, AJ, you had mentioned not working in silos. In rural areas, we cannot afford to do that. We have to bring everybody to the table who's willing to do the work, and then just showing people grace, being kind to each other, embracing our diversity. It's been quite a journey for me. Now we have some questions uh, from our participants. I thought I saw who was the first person to put a question here?
I want to acknowledge Nikisa had her hand up. If
Nakisa.
we could pass it.
Nakisia, okay. Nakisia?
Sorry, I'm driving, but I was gonna say I think when she was asking about um I forgot the question, but I know my answer. Just the answer. The box that I was putting in is definitely a box that I gotta work 2 times harder because I'm a black woman and that I gotta be strong all the time. I'm actually not, and I actually don't. And I actually don't subscribe to that. So I have to be very mindful about when I need something or want something, like I'm not doing too much or I'm not asking too much. Cause I'm from Georgia and I'm from the South, and that's something that's ingrained in us that if like you doing too much or you are asking for too much when really it's simple. And I just feel like that's one thing I've had to learn how to do is like even with my hand raised, like putting it in the chat, that's not something I would have did. I would have been like, oh well. And then I said never mind because I was just driving. So but yeah, I would have just been like, oh well, they ain't see it and ignored and felt like what I had to say wasn't important because that's kind of how you talk. But I worked really hard to say like as soon as somebody says, man, I had my brother had said something to me, he was like said something to me and I was like yeah, because we didn't grow up in the same house. I was like, your perception of me is so wrong. And I had to like correct him, like my life wasn't like what you think it was, because he kind of saw me from a different lens too. So I just wanted to put that out there because that's a very real thing.
But the reality is, what's your name? Did you share your name?
Nikita.
Nikita?
Nikita.
Nakisa. Okay. The
Can you hear
reality
me? I'm
is,
not in the car. Sorry.
no, I got you. I heard you. The reality is, you are. We are all that. We are powerful. We are strong. The reality is, they know more about us than we do. We created this culture. We created civilization. We don't know that. Some of us don't know that. They do. So when they say that, we are that. Unfortunately, we were waiting for them to teach us that. And they were never going to teach us that.
Mm,
So when they say that, they know something that we don't know, a lot of us. It's all through history. We did more than pick cotton. We did more than work on plantation. We created the society, we created this world. If it wasn't for us, there would be no civilization. We suffer because we don't know our history. Without knowledge, the people perish.
okay, I see another hand that Meta.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that AJ and Todd, I would like to say that I am mildly intelligent, that I have my pulse on things that are going on in the world. Y'all blew my head today. Y'all took it to a whole nother level. I'm extremely grateful Because one of the legacies as an OG, I'm 69 now. And I know that in this game, one of the things I always want to do is be able to transmit this message in ways that people can receive it. Y'all really have enlightened me. I'm looking forward. I can't wait to go to the next Ryan White meeting. Baby, thank y'all so very much. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Hannah. Um, let me see if anybody else has raised a hand. Do you see? I can't see the chat right now. It's raining here, so my connection is kind of slow. If not, we have a
I
Kelly has
want to.
a hand
question.
up.
Um,
Kelly has a hand up.
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna.
ask AJ a question.
Oh,
You
um,
can't? Can you hear me?
we can, Myra. I'm actually gonna take my hand down and I'm gonna pass it over to Catherine because I see someone else's hand up.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. I didn't see the hands.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say I enjoyed everything that I heard, and like talking about the transgenders and all the information that was given out today. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. Um, it seemed like every day, every week that I come, I learn something different every time. But it is what it is, and in order for us to keep on progressing and doing better, we're gonna have to help each other. We're gonna have to, when you see your transgender sister going down, help her, lift her up, and give her peace, let her know that she's not alone, she got somebody else. Even though they try to say that transgender people are sex peoples, and that's all that they do. They work as sex people, but they really don't. They do what they do to make their life, because they don't have no other avenue. But um I just enjoyed everything I heard. I enjoyed the two speakers that I got to hear. I enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm telling y'all, I can't wait for the next meeting to come. Thank you, Myra, for putting me in here, girl. I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, Kelly.
Oh, I actually see two other
You
hands.
see two other hands. Ooh.
Yeah. And I do just want to a quick just like note on language, that we, prioritize saying things like sex workers, and trans people, just to make sure we're using like person first language, just like we say people living with HIV. But I do see Manzana's hand, I
Mhm.
think first.
Okay. I see.
Yeah. I just want to say to Tori and to AJ, it's finally nice meeting you guys. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting with you guys. But I am a member of PWN, and I want to say to Tori, I enjoy what you're doing, and I want to say this, my sister. I did this one time before when I was in prison, and I had a meeting with the warden, and we had a Black History Month, and they asked me would I present something, but of course this is in South Carolina, and my title was "To Know Your History is to Know Your Greatness," and that's for
That's
everybody,
true.
every human being. To know your history is to know your greatness. That's all I want everyone to take from this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for that.
And then I see
And
one other hand. Sorry, I'm just gonna support here, Myra, around hands. Miss Kanisha, I think.
okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Excuse me, yo. Excuse me. Um, I am going to say, AJ, it's nice seeing you again. You know what I'm saying? Since we met at Hanek. Um, it's wonderful. It's wonderful that people start seeing like what what trans people go through, and also like being like
allies and helping each other and lifting each other up, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? And I agree with Toy when she said that, we are a reactionary people, because of the fact that we wait until stuff happens in order for us to say this cannot happen, rather than doing something to prevent this from happening. Because I have seen this happen. We have seen this happen many a times. We know what's going on with everything that has happened right now is here. If we can't right now, we can't cry over spilt milk right now. We have to find ways to move forward, and also find ways to fight back. And the way we fight back is we have to be there for each other. And being there for each other looks like us coming together, strategizing, making sure that if my sister needs help or if my brother needs help, I'm going to be there for my brother, and I'm going to be accountable for my brother and my sister. Because that is most important to me, just like how I want them to be accountable for me. That's all I have.
Thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank
I
Love
have
you,
you.
Kanisha.
I know that we are almost at time, but I do have
Yeah.
to pass it to Beautiful Essence because I see your hand, and then we are going to wrap, folks. I'm so sorry that we're going a little long, but I think there's just so much to say.
Yes.
All right. Well, hey everyone. One, I just really want to give all grace and gratitude to our host and hostess. Thank you, Toy. Thank you to my bro AJ. Hey. Y'all have been wonderful. Also, shout out to PWN. Because without this, I would have never got into this. So big shout out to all my people, PW and NOLA especially, but hey to you as well, Kelly. But to wrap this up, because I want to get us out of here on time, to piggyback off of what my good sis Kanisha was saying, my thing to lead out is just like a all call, uh, educate, agitate, organize.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank
Folks, we are going to wrap up. And if you could please share your love in the chat for AJ and Toy. And while you are
Yes.
sharing all of that love, I'm going to share a quick call to action because there is something you
Mhm.
can do right now to push back on the fascist anti-trans Trump administration.
Yeah.
Slideshow view, slideshow. All right. So the advocates for trans equality have made a really easy way for you to comment on what is a really problematic regulation that the Trump regime is trying to push forward. So basically, they're trying to use the Federal Trade Commission to cast doubt on gender affirming care. So they are trying to launch what's called a public inquiry into gender affirming care. But really, this is just kind of like a secretive way to cast doubt on what is a medically necessary and safe procedure. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link. It is very quick. Basically, you are just sending a message to the Trump administration to say that gender affirming care is healthcare and it should be accessible without barriers. And so, yeah, that's a quick thing that you can do to push back and ensure that folks can have access to the care that they need. And then I'm going to encourage you to join us for our next webinar. Next up, we're doing How to Organize Effectively, which is on Thursday, September 25th at 6:00 p.m. And I'll go ahead and drop the link to register if you are not registered already. And with that, I will stop sharing.
I had a question. This is Denise. I went into the link that you just gave for the hands-off gender affirming care, um, and scrolling down, putting in my information, it's asking me to share my story. So, is that the place in the where you put, you know, what you're thinking about the way the government is doing? Oh,
Let's do it. Let's talk about it. All right. So once you go into the public comment area, you'll submit your this information. This information is required because you're going to be submitting information on a federal portal.
mm-hmm.
But they actually gave you language here that you can use to personalize however you would like.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and copy this. And if you don't want to add your story and you want to use the language that they've already suggested, you can do that.
Yeah, I didn't see the comment template. Thank you.
And then you can put it in there.
Okay.
And then what happens is that will get submitted to something called the Federal Register. And that means the Trump administration has to legally review your comment, and they have to legally respond to comments before they enact any sort of regulations.
Hmm.
And I will stop sharing there.
All right. Once again, we thank everybody for showing up. And thank you, AJ and Toy, for not only showing up, but showing out. The beautiful presentation with some much needed information. And with
Thank you
that,
for having me.
yeah, we can give everybody back the rest of their evening.